Hi everyone. Happy New Year. Panos here, co-founder of 𝐏𝐻𝐻𝐸, and today I have the privilege of having Dr. Christian with me, who is one of our 𝐏𝐻𝐻𝐸 affiliates, esteemed 𝐏𝐻𝐻𝐸 affiliate from Pennsylvania. And he's been with us for quite some time now, has had some great experience with, using breath analysis in order to help different patients, different people resolve health issues and get to better health. And today we're going to be discussing some of these use cases and success stories and sort of dive into the details of how breath analysis can be something helpful for the case of people that he's dealing with. Dr. Christian, I think the best starting point would be to give a little bit of background about yourself, the type of practice you are running, and obviously the types of people that you're dealing with, and then we can go into 𝐏𝐻𝐸, double click on other things that you do in your practice. Welcome.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Panos, for connecting and having me here to kind of share my experience. And my background is in physical medicine and rehabilitation. So I started with taking care of patients that have neurological issues, MS, Parkinson's. And then I got into pain management and did pain management for about 8 years. And what I recognized during that period was that the individuals who were getting better from pain outcomes, irrespective of whatever treatment it was, whether medications, injections, physical therapy, acupuncture, was people that were healthy. So I started a new practice, which is 𝐸𝐻 Medicine, which is in Wayne. And the whole inception of this practice was to kind of move away from this idea of pain management, just blocking pain signals, to figuring out how to make people healthy. Because when people are healthy, then all the interventions I do, translate to better outcomes. So on that journey, it became necessary to really look into how do I solve health? And one of the plays that really helped me to really hone in on this, because this is something actually we learn in medical school. When you're in medical school, you learn about physiology, you learn about how things are supposed to work and how things go wrong. And then residency and becoming a physician, if you're in a hospital setting, basically just blocking symptoms. So part of that approach of getting back to solving health became really focusing on the cell, because cell is a fundamental basic unit. So what I do now is really focusing on cellular health to focus on how do I improve pain from a cellular health perspective. How do I improve performance? Because one of the things that I do in my specialty as physical medicine is that we really focus on function. It's all about function. If you don't have the function, you can't really translate. And then I've also come to really focus on one of the biggest risk factor for any disease state, whether it's pain, whatever it is aging. So fundamentally, if I want to make a huge impact in addressing the root cause of pain, then I have to also look into aging. So I also focus on cellular health to address aging as well. So through that paradigm, going through this experience and trying to figure out tools and ways to really get to solving health, I came through your company, and it's been a great experience, a game changer, because there was all of these questions that I had about how to kind of make this translation. It's been a great experience, and there's still more to learn. I've been using your 𝐏𝐻𝐸 for about a year, and looking forward to how do we track some of these data and see how we translate and to help our patients. So happy to be here.
Absolutely. No, thank you for this background. And the approach and perspective you're sharing, I think, is very valuable indeed. The cell is the fundamental basic block of the human body, and so it makes sense to start our treatment by looking into what is happening down to the cellular level. And just so that our listeners kind of get an understanding of how breath analysis can track cellular fitness, a little bit of background around this. What breath analysis does is that it measures the oxygen that is being consumed and the carbon dioxide being produced within the human body. And the way you do that is you pretty much put a measuring device on the airway, on the basic tube that enables this consumption of oxygen and production of carbon dioxide, which is pretty much our airway that ends to our mouth and nose. So it's this mask that you guys have probably seen in videos or pictures. And what we do is we analyze the total amount of oxygen being consumed and total amount of carbon dioxide being produced. And by doing so, you're actually analyzing how the three main systems that participate in oxygen delivery and carbon dioxide clearance are actually working. And these would be the heart, the lungs, and the cells. Obviously, it's not just two things you're measuring. It's not just oxygen consumption and carbon dioxide production. There's multiple sub variables that are being monitored. And by dissecting all of these sub variables, you're able to discern how each one of these three systems is operating individually, but also how these three systems are operating in unison. And as I said before, one of these three systems is the cells, right? And so when it comes down to the cellular level, there are certain biomarkers that are very well established in the literature, scientific literature, as being indicative of a person's cellular function. And that would be things like your respiratory exchange ratio, which indicates the balance between oxygen and CO2 in every inhalation and exhalation. And that indicates how much fat and carbohydrates a person is burning. And by looking into this RER figure during rest, but then also during exercise, and then specifically during exercise by looking into how fat and carbohydrate oxidation changes as exercise intensity increases, all of these are things that can reveal information about a person's cellular fitness. And then in addition to that, another great indicator of a person's cellular fitness is their metabolic rate, which is how many calories their body's burning, right? There's so many things that can affect that, that can cause issues with what we call energy homeostasis, which ultimately results in low metabolism or other problems related to that. And so by measuring how many calories your body's burning, you can actually understand a lot of things about a person's cells. And so these are some of the things that one can start to look at from a breath analysis test in order to understand what is happening down to a cellular level. That was a little bit of background for our listeners about how breath analysis can actually tell you stuff about the cells. What I would like you to describe is how cellular problems, in your experience, actually correlate with other conditions that are now being treated as separate diseases or as isolated kind of conditions, but ultimately have the root cause in some sort of cellular dysfunction.
Yeah, so I think that was a great overview of everything that is involved in this whole process of breath analysis, from here oxygen in through the system and into the cell. And for me, being a pain specialist, even coming into this integrative space, it was really hard for me to figure out, how do I learn about all of these other systems, right? In medical school, I learned about the cardiovascular system, the endocrine system, and all of those things. But then, like we just pointed out, it's just all about the cell. And one of the things that really helped me to make this transition from the previous conventional to this integrative cellular medicine space was going to a conference on peptides. And I think that's actually how I met your group, one of the SSRE, Dr. C's peptide.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And he talked about all of these things. And one of the things that he talked about that really stuck with me, which has really helped me to really break things down, and getting back to your question, is really focusing on the intelligence of the cell. Your body is made up of all of the cells, and they all communicate. And one of the fundamental plays to look at in terms of health is the energetics of the cell. So it comes down to the mitochondria, right? If the cells has energy, it can always adapt in a healthy way. If it doesn't have energy, then it's not going to adapt in a healthy way. And how does it, make energy? It's through substrates, carbohydrate, fatty acid, proteins, amino acids, and then using that and using oxygen, which is where this breath analysis comes in as a limiting factor to make energy, and making energy efficiently in a way that we make more ATP, with less reactive oxygen species or less reactive, metabolites. So when there is a dysfunction, irrespective of whatever organ system it is, I focus on musculoskeletal system, nervous system. So whether it's astrocyte, microglia, whatever cell it is, myocytes, all of those cells have to be able to take in oxygen, make energy efficiently, and adapt in a healthy way based on whatever signal you're giving it. So from a cellular standpoint, if those things are not going well, then it's going to translate to redox imbalances. It's going to translate to more oxidative stress. It's going to translate to more mitochondrial dysfunction, and then that affects tissue function, and then subsequently, people will develop a disease. So having a place where we can actually figure out what is going on with all of these chains of events, which is what I was so happy and excited about when I came through PNOE, because when I came and listened to your group and really understand a lot more about what PNOE can do for understanding that process, it was actually something I was looking for, because I'm in this space of cellular medicine and we do peptides and we can signal hormones, we can do all of that. And the question, and I'm sure probably most of your providers talk about, is how do we measure that what we are actually doing is making a difference, right? So really being able to have a system that allows us to be able to see, okay, are we using energy efficiently? You talk about RER. Are we using carbohydrate at the right time, or are we using fatty acid at the right time? Because then that will translate to metabolic disease. All right. Are we optimizing oxygen extraction in the right way because of muscle breakdown, or because of mitochondrial issues, or because of inefficient energy production? All of that implicates how people feel and how that translates to health. So really going from looking at the cellular level has really helped me to not just solve pain, because when it comes to pain, yes, there's astrocyte dysregulation, there's microglia dysregulation. It's all the cells that are not having good energy to do it well. There is also even things healing from a musculoskeletal standpoint, where it's a function of oxygen, right? You have to get the energy there to do it. So all of those things are things that has helped me to go beyond just pain solving to, I got to learn how to solve hormones, because hormones will implicate how our cell function. I got to learn how to solve the microbiome, because that will influence how our cell function. So all of those things are integrated, and it's important for us to think about how do we have a system that actually allows us to measure all of those integration, which is energy, and PNOE provide that, and it's just been a great experience for us. We've been working with it relatively short period of time compared to others, but it's just great, and the potential and the things that we want to track. So we're really looking forward to how this will translate for our patient. And we have specific programs specifically that we think this will help us to really see what we're doing and how that's translating in people's health, and also guiding people to change their habits.
No, that's amazing. And something else that is very important to highlight for our users is that cellular health in general is something that is very elusive in today's world of science, medicine, wellness. And so having biomarkers that are easily trackable, but also highly established in the scientific literature, that to be indicative of cellular fitness is a game changer. Because if you're in the business of trying to understand what is happening down to a cellular level, you have breath analysis, which provides you with respiratory exchange ratio and metabolic rate. And I think we talked about the bioenergetics, as doctor referred to them. And then after that, you may have some very complicated assessments that you can do with highly specialized lab work that is very expensive, takes a lot of time, very high turnaround times. And so really, when it comes to the practicality of the matter and the realities of a day-to-day practice that is trying to see if, XYZ treatment, nutrition, pharmacological administration, workout plan, you name it, actually has an impact on one cellular fitness, breath analysis is pretty much the only viable option. Dr. Christian, a follow-up question on the results and outcomes that you've been able to see. Can you share a little bit about, the types of interventions that you have provided, and then how, what kind of results you have seen these interventions actually generating.
Yeah, absolutely. And even before, I get to that, to kind of step back a little bit, one of the problems that, we have 4 programs that we are actually doing that we use in PNOE. So we have a performance and fitness program. We have metabolic weight loss. We have longevity, and we have hormones. So these are 4 specialized programs. And then all of that, we are using PNOE as a baseline and then post, treatment evaluation. So all of us are interested in longevity and how well people are going to live. And for me as a pain doctor, I care about that because senescence, one of the factors leading to, aging plays a part in pain and osteoarthritis, back pain, all of those things. And biological age actually predict better the severity of back pain, one of the common problems we have that improve or that leads to disability around the world. So really having a way to really quantify aging was something that I was very interested in. And previous to coming across PNOE, what I understood was, we have these biological markers that we can explore based on methylation. And there's, first generation, second generation, third generation. And one of the things that I recognized was that, some of the first generation, second generation were not as good in measuring some of this established things that we know even translate to longevity, like caloric restrictions. Some clock would say, oh, yes, caloric restrictions actually is positive for aging, whereas some other clocks would say it doesn't. But VO2 max is one of those markers, functional markers that has been well established with all of this literature behind it, that actually, is consistent, right? Because there's other things that people can do to influence biological markers by either they did some infusion or something that changed that right away. But when it comes to VO2 max, those are things that you can really change very quickly. You actually have to put in the work. There has to be adaptations. And we also know that that's the only thing that really has been shown to translate to how long and how well people are going to live. So really having a good metric to kind of start that intervention. Where are you? What are we going to do to solve the problem? And then how do we measure if the intervention is actually making a difference is where PNOE comes in and makes a huge difference. And from a few of the patients that we've worked on, specifically, I can talk about one patient who gave me permission. So for him, we're doing performance program for him. And he's a high-performing athlete. He's a high-level jiu-jitsu in the world and young patient, very active, has been doing this very long time. So he came in and we did his PNOE breath analysis, active test, resting test. We're going to get all of that data. And, his VO2 max was great, because he's active and he's done all of those things. And one of the things that was kind of a little surprising, which it's really helpful for clinicians to understand, because sometimes when you asking patient stories and asking them about history, they're not able to tell you everything, but some of this tests will pick up something. So his VO2 max was great. His biological age was 22 compared to 27. Recovery was not that great. And then he was not metabolically flexible. So I was kind of like perplexed. Why is this person who's so fit? He has muscle. We did, we also combined in-body evaluation to kind of have all these lenses. And he wasn't metabolically flexible. So I was kind of like, what is going on here? What do you eat? When do you eat? And it turns out because of his schedule, he works out late and he eats meals very late. So this is a case where, somebody who we thought that he was very fit, yet there was this metabolic inflexibility where we were able to kind of pinpoint that based on his PNOE analysis and not just focusing on one thing that looks good, right? This is integrating the whole system. And based on that, we were actually able to put him on some specific protocols, some peptides to help with recovery, because something that he wasn't good with was his recovery wasn't that great. So we worked on that, and then also worked on really getting him to eat a little bit sooner, and then even doing some fasting. And we're going to be testing him again in February. We did it in November. We're going to do it again in 3 months. So I'll anticipate that those markers will change. Clinically, he feels so much better. He has more energy. His sleep is better. So this is just one case of a person who's done well based on this specific precision type targeted things. There's multiple patients that we have on weight loss program with semaglutide and all of those things, and really getting that resting metabolic rate, because one of the things, as you know, that lead to this plateau that people go through with weight loss medications or whatever weight loss diets and other things is not understanding the energy that your body actually needs at the baseline resting metabolic rate. to perform. And then people will say, I'm tired, I'm fatigued, I'm this. And then we do PNOE, and then we realize they're not even eating enough, even though they're in caloric deficit. So pushing things up a little bit. And in fact, I have a patient this morning that I talked to, say, hey, let's bring your, eat a little bit more, even though you're trying to lose weight. So all of that has been really amazing in terms of really guiding people with habits. So for this previous patient, he learned how not to eat so late and then also going to bed on time. So the insight has been quite amazing so far. And then we are also looking to track. In my practice, we have a PhD person who's going to be tracking a whole bunch of metrics because we want to really, do precision medicine. And what we're getting from PNOE is, the precision nutrition, precision exercise, and how that actually translate to the individual person. So overall, so far, it's been a great experience, and continue to learn from that and see how we can help our patients.
And with this case study, you're touching upon, I think, a very interesting topic for today's society, which is these individuals who are seemingly very healthy, but may have certain underlying, I don't want to call it condition, because with a traditional terminology and definition of medicine 2.0, what they have would certainly be considered subclinical, and as a result, the average doctor or health professional wouldn't actually treat them for anything. So I'm just going to use the term problem. They have some sort of underlying problem that is actually going to cause a pretty significant issue down the road that may end up, lead to, a debilitating condition that is certainly considered clinical, and then obviously lead to significant depreciation in the quality of life. And one such issue, which is a cellular dysfunction that is a result of poor nutrition, bad nutrition timing, that is very, very common, especially when it comes to busy individuals, young individuals who may be, on the go all the time, and then they don't really pay attention to how they space out their macros and their calories. And you can actually, create a lot of harm to your cells by eating the right food at the wrong time. And so another very common case that we come across more and more frequently is people that are very active, very good VO2 max, but they have some sort of breathing dysfunction that is leading to sleep apnea, or has already led them to being, to some extent, experiencing sleep apnea. And so that's another major risk factor for these people's overall health, because sleep apnea, apart from the fact that it can create a very serious, reduction in quality of life on the spot, because you just can't sleep, you're tired all the time, you can't perform at your best. It is a major risk factor for neurodegenerative diseases, because it does create long periods of oxygen deprivation, and the most sensitive organ to that oxygen deprivation is the brain. And so this oxygen deprivation is a major source for neuro inflammation, which then is going to lead to neurodegeneration. And so that's just like a message to people out there who deal with people that would be considered upper middle class. I mean, let's face it, upper middle class people would generally be considered healthier. But just because they look healthy, and just because, they may work out, or they may have like an expensive gym subscription, or they may be doing their cold plungers, the saunas, and perhaps in many cases even more, doesn't mean that, they're sort of okay. They may have some serious underlying problems that down the road can lead to serious health complications.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that I'm also recognizing, which is something I knew intuitively, is this idea of, your habits, health, your habits is a lagging indicator of your health is a lagging indicator of your habits, right? So we all know what we're supposed to do. We just don't do them. Everybody knows about, in fact, when you look at doctors, right? How many doctors are healthy, right? Doctors knows about health. And to be able to have a way to push you or nudge you in the correct way, because one of the things I've seen with the results that people get is that it actually gets people to become a little competitive in a healthy way, meaning they will look at that and go, oh my gosh. And then they can also even validate why they have those deficiencies, right? They have a low VO2 max, like you said. So, I have a lot of physical therapists and other fitness people who come in and do this. And, by physical evaluation, by looking at them, by looking at their in-body, they have a lot of muscle. They have all of these things. They look good. They go to the gym 5 times a week. And then you recognize that, oh my gosh, they have a very low VO2 max. And then you ask about what are they doing? And then it becomes, oh, I don't do any cardio. Oh, I have this habits where, I use tobacco. So it really points out, people kind of start seeing that, yeah, I'm doing all of these good things, but there's this other habits which are not really helping me to get to this goal of becoming healthy. So I think this has been a great tool to really get people to change habits. And even for me, I did my VO2 max thing, and I'm just kind of like, I'm competitive, and I was like, oh my gosh, I can't do this.
How did you do?
I did not do well.
Oh.
Because I don't do cardio, right? And I'm a guy I go to the gym. I don't eat junk, and I really drink or smoke or any of those things. But yet, I have this habits that I just don't like to do to push and stress the body. So now this has really pointed me in a way to overall start incorporating those things. And then the other thing that's also important and great about Pinoy is the specificity. So, we talk about, people understand zones of training, zone 2, zone 3, zone 4. And then it becomes, how much do you do it for? What heart rate specifically for you? So really getting that information to individuals and for people makes such a huge difference, because everybody knows exercise is good. But what is exercise is good for? If you're trying to optimize performance, if you're trying to lose weight, if you're trying to live longer, there's all these nuances that I think this breaks down that, and it becomes very precise in helping people to do the right thing that is for them at the right time. And it's all about timing, as we talked about. So this is a really great tool to really help people change habits and also get specific and then see the results once they make those changes.
Totally. And, another thing that goes back to the specificity of exercise prescription that you touched upon, tying that back to the oxygen chain that I described in the beginning. We have the lungs, the heart, and the cells, the 3 systems that participate in oxygen delivery and carbon dioxide clearance. Not every form of exercise is appropriate for each system, meaning that every form of exercise has a greater positive effect on each system. And then there's cases where a lot of exercise can actually, a lot of exercise from one type of exercise can actually start to do harm to one of these 3 systems, right? So when it comes to lungs, for example, it's primarily zone 4 intervals that will help you. When it comes to zone 2 training, it's primarily your mitochondria within the cell that it's going to benefit. When it comes to resistance training, it's going to be more the energy homeostasis part of the cell that you're going to positively affect. But then when you start to do too much of zone 2 training, you may start to decrease your metabolism because you start to become more economical. And so understanding how different forms of exercise can impact your biology and the different components of your biology differently is very, very important, because first of all, people need to understand that health doesn't just come from exercising. Health comes from exercising smartly and specifically. As I like to say, nutrition and training are undeniably the 2 most powerful forms of medicine. So we need to actually treat them with the same level of sophistication and specificity that we would treat the administration of, formal quote unquote medicine. And then B, when you start to educate people on how exercise can have this profound effect on different forms of, different parts of our biology, depending on what we do, then people start to understand how things work with their body and are therefore much more likely to start adopting the whatever intervention you have given them. As I like to say, we do not suffer from a pathological lack of willpower. We suffer from severe lack of education. So you educate people out of their tendency to not exercise. You educate people out of their tendency to eat crap? And how do you do that? By, explaining to them how things work with their body.
Yeah. And I also think one of the tools that this tool gives, me as a provider, as clinicians that are out there, the precision to focus on where do you focus. So, I've had patients where, yes, their VO2 max is, I'm also a physical medicine doctor. So some of my patients have disabilities where, they have, VO2 max is low because they're not moving as well. So what else can I do at the cellular level to help improve all of that? So this is where, I can look at, peptides, specific peptides that can really make them more metabolically flexible. So I can put them on some, CJC and pamorelin. I can put the people on specific supplementation that helps with vasodilatation because, like this whole chain, where can I target based on where people are if they don't have the strength to even do the exercise itself? Because there's all these limitations that, individuals may have based on whatever disease states or even based on, not having the knowledge. So this is really a great thing to have as a provider, to be able to solve problems from different angles and be able to kind of give your patients some type of hope. Because one of the things that it's also, very frustrating for patients is if they're doing all the work and they're not seeing the results. So what else can we do? So being able to kind of have a sense of where are the limitations? Is this something that we can work on from a biological standpoint? Is this something that people can do physically? And if they can do it physically, how efficiently can they do it? Because not everybody can, have the time to exercise for, 1 hour a day, especially busy people. So all of that in combination, being able to have this information, being able to have the knowledge that I have as a cellular medicine physician, it's just been great, and really looking forward to, like I said, being able to do a lot of this and track and see how our patients do from all the intervention, what's working better, what's not working better. And that's also going to help me to be, educated in terms of how we take care of our patient. Yeah. So we're all very, very happy with this tool. And I'm glad that we have this around to help providers support our patients.
Awesome. No, that's awesome. What are some next steps in terms of expanding your practice? Like, what do you see for your practice down the road? Are you considering adding more things, other treatments, diagnostic tools? Can you talk to us a little bit about your practice outside of PNOE?
Yeah, so like I said, our practice, we do pain, and then we have this specialized programs of performance and fitness. So we use the tools of assessment, and then we have all this supplementation, senolytics, other things, peptides to help people. There's also a hormone program. We have a weight loss metabolic program. And what I'm interested in, yes, obviously we want to expand, and what I'm interested in bringing in is really trying to look at, and I don't know if this has actually been done, to look at some of these third generation biological clocks, comparing that to PNOE to see, when we did a PNOE and somebody have a biological age of, 27, does that translate to this same clock? And even if it's a difference and we measure following subsequent interventions, does that change what we see with VO2 max? We know VO2 max is well validated. So really trying to understand some of these third generation biological clocks, symphony age and other things to see how that translates for people. And also get into a place where this, in my practice, that, breath analysis becomes a baseline assessment for everybody because we do pick up things that may not be apparent in people's history. And then integrating other tools, other technologies, wearables. How do we make it easier for people to become healthy? And there's so much tools out there. So the future for us is really trying to learn how are we doing with the interventions we have? How do we find better systems to also gauge how we understand baseline problems and how we solve it? Because like you said, it's not just one tool. Because sometimes people may look good on VO2 max. What else is going on in their life? People may have a specific baseline metabolic profile, but then there's something else in their life that's not working well. So having a broader lens of assessment is something that I'm interested in. And how do we make things individualized, precise for the person in front of you? Because people have specific limitations. So moving forward, that's where we want to go, integrate a lot more tools that actually translate and make a difference in patients' life.
Totally, totally. Awesome. Dr. Christian, that was very interesting and much appreciate all the insights from your practice and obviously the case study you shared. We very much look forward to seeing all the great results that I'm sure your practice will generate down the road. And you're a frequent goer to all the conferences that we go
Yeah,
to. So, I had the pleasure of meeting you in person.
yeah,
Um, just like, I've had the pleasure of meeting so many of our affiliates that also come to the A4Ms, the SSRPs, the IFMs of the world, etc. This year is going to be quite big for us in terms of attending Expo, so I'm sure I'm going to run into you
yeah.
in the near future.
Yeah, and it's been great with your team. Everybody has been really supportive. So that's one thing I would say. Initially when I was getting into this, I was going, oh my gosh, I'm not gonna have the time to do this. And the support has been amazing. My patients are
Mm,
very happy with meeting with the metabolic aspect, getting things explained to them. So then when they
mm,
come to me, they're already like, oh my gosh, I know what to do. And then all I have to do is like, how do I signal the cell from here? Do I give you some hormones? Do we do some peptides?
mm.
Do we do some other things? And then
Mhm.
try to support people. So great team to work with and marketing
Appreciate
and
it.
everything else is there. So really
Thank
appreciate
you.
that support and that comprehensive
Mhm.
package to the program you offer. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. So for those who want to learn more, we just posted a link so that you can schedule a call with one of our experts, learn more about PNOE, how PNOE can help your practice. Dr. Christian, thank you so much for your time. Uh, Thanks, everyone for joining, and have a great rest of your day.
All right. Thank you so much. And thanks for the work
Have a
you
good
do
one.
in transforming how we deliver care and impacting patients' lives.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I
Yeah.
appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Okay.